You've probably heard the story of Moses and the burning bush. It's one of those iconic images, right? But what if the real meaning isn't just about a spectacular miracle, but about a much deeper, timeless truth? Today, we're going to dig into the key theological insights from this really powerful story in Exodus.
Okay, so at the very heart of this story is this incredible, kind of contradictory idea: burned but not destroyed. This became a huge symbol for the early church, actually. It represented a people who were just engulfed in the flames of persecution and trials, but somehow, miraculously, they were preserved. This is really the core theme of the entire narrative.
So, this isn't just some random magic trick in the desert, right? It's a profound symbol of a people going through immense suffering, yet they're being sustained by a power that just refuses to let them turn to ash. According to the sermon this is based on, this one single vision forces us to ask three huge foundational questions, like how does God's intervention even kick off? Why now? And maybe most importantly, what's the end game here? The answers to these questions, well, they really define the heart of this entire faith.
All right, so that brings us to the God in this story. I mean, who is this being who shows up in a burning bush? It's a question humanity has been trying to answer, and let's be honest, often getting wrong, for a very, very long time.
So, how does this God reveal himself? Well, the story immediately gets into this fundamental tension. We humans, we love to put things in a box. We want to create images of God, to define and contain the divine in a way we can understand and maybe even control. But the God of Exodus just completely resists that impulse. He refuses to be captured in a physical idol or even in some neat, tidy concept we cook up in our imaginations. He's the one who initiates. He chooses the time and place for revelation, and he acts as the main force driving history forward. The point is, he's never a passive idea. He is an active agent. And this is so key. When Moses asks for a name, what does he get? Not some big philosophical definition. He doesn't get, I am ultimate reality, or something like that. Nope. He gets, I am the God of your family, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He defines himself through relationship, through history, connecting directly to Moses' own life story. Okay, so what about the guy God picks for this massive job, Moses? We tend to think of revolutionary leaders as these super charismatic, ambitious, powerful people. But is that who God chooses here? So, what kind of leader does this revolution need? Well, this is where the story just completely flips our expectations on their head. It challenges everything we think a hero should look like. I mean, just look at this contrast. Your typical revolutionary builds a following. Moses, he was rejected by his own people. They have grand ambitions. Moses' ambition was totally crushed. They seize power. He's hiding out in the wilderness as a shepherd. It's the complete opposite of what you'd expect. And we're not talking about a weekend retreat here. We're talking about 40 years. 40 years shepherding sheep in the desert, stripped of any royal status, of any ambition, of any self-importance he had left. By the time God calls him, that youthful passion is long gone, replaced by a whole lot of doubt and humility. So what's the big lesson here? That God didn't pick the confident hero who thought he could do it. He picked the guy who had failed, the one who knew deep down that he was not up to the task. This makes sure that when the liberation finally happens, all the glory goes to God, not to the strength or charisma of some human leader. And this brings us to what might be the most important question of all, the why. What was the ultimate purpose of this whole epic story? So why did God save the Israelites from Egypt? The answer seems super obvious, right? But the sermon argues that the obvious answer, well, it's really just the beginning of the story. And don't get me wrong, liberation is a massive part of it. God saw their suffering, he heard their cries, and he acted to end the incredible injustice of their slavery. That is absolutely undeniably true. But, and this is a huge but, that's not the whole story. If freedom from oppression was the only goal, then the mission would feel kind of incomplete. See, God wasn't just taking them away from something negative. He was bringing them to something positive. He literally tells Moses, the sign that this is all real will be when you will worship God on this mountain. The ultimate goal, the destination, wasn't just leaving Egypt. It was worship. It was about a restored relationship with God.
So let's bring all this together. What's the final takeaway from this ancient story? How does it kind of reframe how we should understand salvation itself? The story really challenges us to rethink what redemption actually means. We so often think of it as just an escape plan, a way out of a bad situation. But redemption here isn't just being saved from hell or suffering or slavery. It's about being restored to our original purpose. Deliverance from hardship, that's the journey for sure. But returning to a life of worshiping our Creator, that is the final destination. And this leaves us with a final, really challenging question. It asks us to look at our own lives and think, are we just happy to be freed from something? Or are we actively moving toward the purpose for which we were made? Where are you on that road?